everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to get into my review of the new Tom Ford foundation. So this just launched on the Sephora website, and I think it launched at Nordstrom's. I'm not sure. I probably shouldn't say. This is a new Traceless Soft Matte Foundation. So they used to have an original formula that was the Traceless liquid foundation, and I actually never tried that foundation. So I don't know how this is going to compare to the original, but my favorite foundation of all time is the stick foundation. The Traceless stick foundation is my favorite foundation I own, period. I love this foundation. So because I'm very familiar with that formula, I'm curious how this is going to work. I also really like the Shade and Illuminate foundation, so I definitely wanted to pick this up and review it for you guys. So this foundation retails for $88, and it looks like it has 40 shades, and I went ahead and chose the shade 7.5 Shell Beige, which is the shade that I wear in his foundation. So like the Shade and Illuminate I buy in 7.5 Shell Beige. This stick foundation I wear 7.5 Shell Beige. So it was before Shell Beige was launched, I was in between 7.0 and 7.7. So I was right in between there. And then when they launched a few more shades right in between, I found my perfect match. This shade I feel like is a little bit off, which I will get into later on in the video. The description on this, it says it is a soft focus matte foundation with a hydrating silky formula and a medium to full coverage that is supposed to last all day. Medium matte finish liquid. It is for normal, dry, combo, and oily skin. It has hyaluronic acid, active blends such as vitamin C, vitamin E, and caffeine. And it also has a soft focus microsphere powder that diffuses and blurs light. This is a different bottle, so I really like how it's created because it has a twist top on it. You can twist it closed, and it has that pump. I don't know what they call it. It's like a hydraulic type of deal where this is like the best way to get the most out of the bottle, more so than just like a regular liquid foundation that has, you know, the pump that goes down inside. So I'm gonna wear this for the next couple days and kind of play around with it. I do feel like there is something off when it comes to the tone of this foundation. I've got some gray spots going on, which are kind of curious. Like you can see it right above my lip. I don't know what's going on. You know, I put it on early this morning, so I've been wearing it for several hours now. I will also do some footage for you guys out in the natural daylight so you guys can see what this looks like in the natural daylight, do some really up close images. In the description box down below, I will have a list of my skin, what I wear, what I like, and what shades I wear in certain foundations, just for a reference for you guys. Let's go ahead and jump into the application, and then we'll get into the check-ins, and then I'll get into my final thoughts. So without further ado, let's jump right into the application. Okay, let's try out this new foundation. So I am getting ready to take my son to the airport, so I'm gonna hurry and throw this on, get it on, and then run to the airport, come back, and probably finish filming another video. But for my base, I'm thinking about putting on some of my Charlotte Tilbury Magic Cream. This one is kind of similar to the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Rich Face Base. You don't need very much of this. In fact, I might have put too much on. It's so concentrated, and a little dab of it goes so long and so far. I'm gonna try it with a few different primers. So I'm gonna use the Charlotte Tilbury today. Tomorrow I'll use my Bobbi Brown. As per usual, I'm gonna apply one side with a sponge and the other with a brush. This sponge is the new one. I got this in my Trend Mood box for July. And it's from the Makeup Eraser. So you know how the Makeup Eraser rag, you know, it wipes off your makeup and all that. Well, they launched a new sponge that comes in this like little dome thing that you can throw in your washer. I think I'll use my Old Faithful favorite brush from my cosmetics. It's the Heavenly Luxe number 7. Let's put this on this side with a brush. I can say that it blends right into the skin. It doesn't feel like it's a thick formula. It feels kind of like a thinner formula to the point where it just literally blends right in. And I don't really have any brush marks. If you wear 7.5 Shell Beige in this foundation, just keep in mind that this does have a gray undertone. I think I'm gonna take whatever's left here on the back of my hand, pick it up with my sponge, kind of clean my hand off and then go over it with a sponge just to make sure. I always like to go over it with a sponge just to make sure that it's really pressed into the skin good and that it's evenly applied. Sometimes when you apply with a brush, you know, you just run a risk of not getting a full even application. Plus, I like to make sure that it's really pushed into the skin and more skin-like. So I always prefer to apply my foundations with a brush, but always push it into the skin with a sponge. So I would say I got a decent medium coverage with that. So let's go ahead and go in with one more pump. And I'm going to put this on this side. This is a really nice sponge. Kind of reminds me of the Wonder Beauty sponge, but it's really spongy and I don't feel like it's absorbing my foundation a lot like some other sponges. I've been using a beauty blender sponge that I found because I was kind of low on, like my other sponge just wasn't working very good. So I was using a beauty blender sponge and I like that sponge, but it absorbs. It's more porous. And so, you know, the holes are very visible in it. And so it really absorbs the foundation. This is not that type of sponge. This one doesn't absorb quite like the Beauty Blender does. This looks pretty good. And to be honest, because I went in with the magic cream underneath it, I wouldn't say that this is matte right now. I don't know. I'm definitely looking gray though, huh? Like as I'm sitting here, I feel like my skin is getting darker and grayer. This is very, very weird. I like the finish of this though. Even though it says it's a soft matte, I don't know if it's because I have the magic cream underneath it, but I don't feel like it's super mattifying. All right, so I'm gonna put some of my Hourglass concealer, and this is in the shade Beige. I like to blend it out with a brush and then kind of smooth it out with a sponge. But I'm wondering, sometimes when you put a concealer on, it kind of pulls it together and it'll kind of lighten up the foundation a little bit. Like, I don't know if this has happened to anybody else. Why I'm filming this, there hasn't been any reviews pop up on YouTube yet because it's such a new product. So I don't know I don't know if this is happening with every shade or just my shade. You know, it's always hard to know based on shade. But there's something up with this shade in particular, and I can't figure it out. It does look really good. It looks really natural. I didn't put on a lot. I just put a thin, even layer all over. So I probably could get more coverage, but I'm afraid to layer this one only because of the way that the shade is reacting to my skin. I feel like if I went back into the product and went in to build coverage here, I have a feeling that you would be able to see that. Based on the way that this is setting up on my skin, you're gonna put layers of this on. You need to do it one right after the other. You can't let it set up because I think you'll be able to see it. It'll get maybe spots, you know, splotchy in a certain area. So it is currently 9:14 in the morning. So that's it for the application. I will see you guys in my next check-in. Okay, so it is currently 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There we go. I think I've had it on for what, 7 hours now, maybe a little over 7 hours. And I think it looks pretty good. I think the only thing I don't like about it is it has a cast, a gray cast right over my lip that I don't know what it is. But I think it actually looks really pretty. It is a nice soft matte finish. Normally I'm not in love with matte foundations, but this one I actually think is quite pretty as far as it's not too matte. It's just a very soft matte, but it's not dewy or super hydrating either. Now, of course, I love the Traceless Stick Foundation, but this one is nice. It's got good coverage on it. I feel like it looks pretty decent over my texture. It's just the gray cast in certain areas. If I turn my head a certain way, I'm like, oh, that looks gray. I don't know. I like this foundation, but there's something weird with the shade and I can't put my finger on it. I think it looks really pretty on the skin, but there's something up with the shade. But let's go ahead and do some close-ups. Let's zoom you guys way in, way too close. This is what it's looking like over my texture. I don't think it emphasizes my texture all that much. It looks pretty good in my wrinkle right here. It's just right here. Can you see that gray cast right here? And I think that might be a good image. It's right here. Like, this is the line, and this part is gray. This part isn't gray. This part is gray. I can't put my finger on it. It's weird. I've never had a foundation turn gray like that, just in certain spots. So I'm gonna take you guys out into the direct sunlight so you guys can see what this looks like in direct sunlight. Okay, I'm blinded, so I will not be able to open my eyes. There we go. Okay, so now that we got, you know, direct sunlight, it's kind of hard to do direct sunlight, but anyway, I'm going to continue to wear this for the next couple days, see if maybe I did apply it funky when I did and have it turn gray right there. I'm just not exactly sure why it's doing that, but I will continue to kind of play around with it and keep you guys updated. I'm going to wear it for the next couple days and with different primers, obviously, as well. So I will see you guys in my next check-in. Okay, everyone, I have been wearing this foundation for a couple of days now, and I have a lot to say about it. I am going to kind of zoom you guys in and show you guys what this looks like. I've had it on for... Okay, so I applied it right around 9:30 this morning, and it's actually 3:30 right now, which is pretty dang awesome. It is 3:30, Monday, 3:30. And I'm going to pull you in so you guys can see what this looks like in like some studio lighting. I will probably turn down the ring light so you guys can see what it looks like really up close. I have a lot to say about this foundation. I actually wore it on Saturday. My husband and I went touring around the Parade of Homes in northern Utah, and we were gone all day. It was an all-day experience. We went into all these different houses. We were in and out of the car, in and out of homes, back in the car, drive down. It was a lot. So, plus it was like 95 degrees that day in Salt Lake. So it was really, really hot. And I put this foundation to the test that day. I applied it early that morning, probably around 8 o'clock. I didn't have time to do any check-ins. I apologize. No check-ins, but I kept a good eye on it to see what it was doing. And even when I got home, it looked pretty good. I think I took it off probably around 11 o'clock that night. So I did wear it for longer than 12 hours. The thing that I've noticed with this foundation is I love everything about it except for the shade. And I was kind of hoping that it would be the exact same shade as the stick foundation, but it's not. I'll actually put up an image right here of the Tom Ford foundations that I have and the shades that I have so you guys can see what it looks like. But you can tell that this one has a gray tone to it on my skin. I, am self-tanned right now. Plus, I already have a warm undertone. And then when I self-tan, it makes me even more warmer. So obviously, this tone is turning me even more gray. So the shade is wonky. I don't know what it is. It turns gray in certain areas. That's the shade, though. The foundation, I actually really like. I love the finish of this because it's perfect for the summer. So for example, I love those natural, like little bit of dewy type of foundations. And sometimes during the summer, I can't wear those because they're too dewy. And when you get out into the heat, you'll get even more dewy from, from sweat and all of that. And so it's like, you got to be careful with the finish that you wear in the summer based on what you wear during the winter. And I am just absolutely loving, I'm telling you, I love the finish of this foundation. So beautiful. It's almost like a satin. I don't know that I would say this is a matte formula. I do think it's a soft, but I've never felt like this was matte. I felt like this is just a natural satin finish where it does not feel dewy, but it's not matte either. It still allows your skin to look really healthy and radiant. And I love the finish of this. Absolutely, unequivocally love the finish. It's so pretty on the skin. It's just the shade. Because I really like it, I want to try to get a different shade. I want to try to get my right shade. So as you can see, it looks so beautiful over the pores. Love the way this looks. It just has such a beautiful finish. It's not super radiant, so if you love those super radiant, dewy foundations, then this is not the one I would pick. But I mean, now ignore this. I like slept like this. And I mean, here we are. It's 3:30. I woke up at like 7:30 this morning and it still is so wonky. And my eyelashes, I'm trying out a new mascara and it does not work for my bottom lashes. So my bottom lashes look ridiculous, but I think it just looks really beautiful on the skin. I think it looks really healthy over my texture. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the ring light completely. Now I just have soft boxes sitting in front of me and it just looks so pretty. But I don't know that you guys can see this gray cast. I can see it in the mirror, but my lip always turns gray. It almost makes me feel like I have hyperpigmentation in certain areas. Okay, so 7.0 is medium dark with warm undertones. I'm thinking about getting that shade. I really think if I could get some warmth in it and if it darkens, I probably will love this. Like this might be a new favorite foundation because I just love the finish of this. I just need to get that right shade. And if you already have your shade in Tom Ford, you may run into the same struggles I am. Now, don't get me wrong. We all have different skin. We all have different skin undertones. So some shades match us better in certain ways than others. For example, the 7.5 in the stick foundation gives me a little bit of that warmth tan to my skin to kind of match, you know, my neck and stuff from self-tanning. But I never felt like it was gray. This one is a little bit gray, and it could just be because the undertone doesn't match my undertone. So I just love this foundation. I do. I love it. I think it's a beautiful foundation. It's just the shades are a little wonky. So I'm curious to see how everybody else is feeling about this. I haven't watched any reviews on it. I don't want to hear other people's opinion on it until I actually use it for myself and decide how I like it. I feel like that's the most accurate way to give a full review that stays true to who I am, is to not watch anybody else's. Okay, so that's it for kind of like this check-in and kind of my experience with it throughout the, you know, weekend and stuff. I will come back. I'm going to do a 12-hour check-in so you can see what this looks like 12 hours later and see kind of how it breaks down and wears down. And, you know, I'll give you my full thoughts, but I've pretty much already given you my full thoughts. I love it. I just got to figure out the shade. So I will see you guys in my 12-hour check-in. Okay, everyone, I am back to give like a 12-hour check-in. I've pretty much given you guys my thoughts on this, but it is 11:14, so I have literally had this foundation on for about 14 hours. I went ahead and bought another shade. I might have flubbed up because I didn't realize they had a 7.2. I bought 7.0 Tawny, and 7.0 Tawny and 7.2 Sepia is described as the exact same thing. It's medium to dark with golden undertones. I don't know how that helps me. It just absolutely drives me crazy. This foundation is perfect. It's everything I love in a foundation. This foundation is everything that the stick foundation is, except for it doesn't have that dewy skin-like finish. Don't get me wrong. This is skin-like, but it's in a satin finish. So they're kind of the same foundation, but this one's just more of a satin finish, and I feel like this one's more of like a hydrating, borderline dewy type of finish. So I absolutely love this foundation. The shade is wonky. If you wear 7.5 Shell Beige and you saw that this might be too gray on you, I have already bought another shade. So I bought 7.0. I probably should have got 7.2, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm a nutcase. So I will hopefully get my right shade, and I will give you guys my full update in my July favorites. So if you're still curious about the shade situation, for me, come back in my July favorites and I will update you. But I love this foundation. I think it's beautiful. If you know your shade in the Tom Ford foundations, don't automatically think that it's going to work for you, because I have found that that is not the case. So the shades are wonky, but the finish and the formula is perfection for what I like and what I look for. What I forgot to mention in my previous update is when I was telling you guys I was going through the parade of homes and I was going in and out of the homes, in and out of the car all day in the heat. I was also putting my mask on and off, on and off, on and off all day long. It didn't phase this. It's so skin-like that you can kind of touch your skin without feeling like you're gonna wipe your foundation off. This is a beautiful, beautiful foundation. I just think that the shades are wonky. And like I said earlier, the reason why I didn't feel like I could go in with a double layer with this, meaning I wanted one even layer, I didn't want to go in double, like even in one spot. So for example, if I put the even layer on and then I wanted to build up a little bit of coverage in this area, because of the way this shade and the way that it reacts, I knew it would turn it more gray and it would have gray spots. So I'm thinking that's what kept happening over my lip, is that as I was blending it in, I might have went over my lip maybe too many times with the foundation, and it caused that. So you have to be mindful of all of that, you know, when it comes to this shade. I don't know if it's doing that in all the shades. All I can tell you is the shades are weird, but the foundation is freaking amazing. It's so, so good. You can see I still, you know, it's not breaking away from my skin in any places. I mean, it looks beautiful. Let me turn down the ring light, because I do think that the ring light can kind of make things look a little bit better than they do. So as you can see, my forehead looks pretty good. Now, granted, I'm a little shiny. I am sitting in front of lights. So therefore, you know, if you have a little bit of gloss on your skin, a little bit of something, you know, shine's going to reflect off of light. Lights will reflect off of your shine. So, you know, in natural lighting, and I shut these lights off and I was just in the house, you would never know it. It's gathered maybe a tiny bit here in my nose, but in such a beautiful, natural way. It has wore off a little bit around my lip and around my nose, but the key is it doesn't really look like it unless you're looking really, really up close. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's gathered right around here and right around here. I think this foundation looks pretty dang good for 14 hours. I will say I did not wear a mask today. I haven't left the house, so I have not, you know, worn a mask. This foundation I love so much, I am willing to spend another $88 to get a bottle just to get the shade I want, because I love it that much. So if I can get the right shade, I will let you guys know in my July favorites and get you guys fully updated on the 411 on this foundation. So that's it for the video. I hope that this review was helpful. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me in today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I love you all so, so much, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Love you. Bye.